Imagine finding a map, right? Like a highly detailed map to heaven.
Okay, I'm with you.
And it's not metaphorical. It has precise borders, layover locations, specific tier destinations.
Mhm.
But when you finally arrive at the toll booth to actually get in,
Right, the gatekeepers.
yeah, the guards, they don't ask to see your religious affiliations.
Yeah.
They don't weigh your, good deeds against your bad ones.
Which is what you'd expect, right?
Exactly. Instead, they strictly demand your emotional baggage. They literally measure your grudges, your resentments, your need for revenge. And if you are carrying even an ounce of hatred, the gate just stays permanently shut.
Wow. I mean, that fundamentally changes the criteria for salvation right there.
Totally.
Because you're no longer being judged on this grand moral ledger, but rather on the internal biological state of your own mind. Like if your mind is a hostile environment, you simply cannot cross the border.
Which is exactly the premise of our deep dive today. For you, the learner tuning in, whether you're commuting to work or just trying to make sense of the world, we have a mission today.
A very specific mission.
Yes. We are unpacking a fascinating, highly specific spiritual text from 2011. It's titled, Lifechanyuan Celestials Must Learn to Forgive Others, by an author named Yufeng, and it was translated by Kong Long.
Right.
And we are exploring how this text frames forgiveness, because it's not framed as like a gentle moral suggestion. It's presented as a literal mandatory requirement for ascending through these different tiers of heaven.
Right, while also doubling as a deeply practical, immediate tool for everyday emotional survival. I mean, the author presents a cosmology that is incredibly intricate.
Oh, very intricate.
But the toll to travel on this map is paid entirely in psychological currency. To navigate this metaphysical geography, you basically have to master your own nervous system.
Yeah, and let's look closely at that map, because before we can fully grasp why the author is so uncompromising about forgiveness, we kind of have to understand where he's actually trying to take us.
Yeah, exactly. You need to know the destination.
So, Zhuifeng claims to come from a place he calls the 1,000-year world. And he defines this space very uniquely as the lowest space of heaven.
Yeah, and that distinction of it being the lowest space is critical.
Why is that?
Well, it implies a hierarchy, right? Like an entire ladder of realities to climb. But even in this foundational entry-level tier of heaven, the defining characteristic isn't necessarily supreme bliss.
Right.
The defining characteristic is the absolute absence of hatred. The text states that in the 1,000-year world, hatred simply cannot exist. There is only happiness, joy, and freedom.
Wait, so the entry-level heaven is defined by a subtraction rather than an addition.
Yes.
It's defined purely by the removal of hostility. So that means anyone carrying hatred fundamentally cannot survive the atmosphere there.
Precisely. It's like if you're harboring deep anger, the environment just rejects you. I always think of it like trying to carry a really strong magnetic field into an MRI machine.
Oh, wow.
The two forces are just physically incompatible. The text basically argues that the frequency of hatred shatters the frequency of the 1,000-year world.
Okay, so if that is the destination, the text introduces a mechanism for getting there, which it calls the second home, also known as the new oasis for life.
Right.
And the author established this right here on Earth. He refers to it literally as a transfer station from the earth to heaven.
Which is such an interesting concept.
It really is. The people living there are supposed to copy and practice the exact lifestyle of the 1,000-year world. So my mind immediately goes to the concept of, like, spiritual immigration.
Spiritual immigration, I like that.
Right. The second home acts like a visa processing center. You are essentially doing a layover where you acclimate to the cultural norms of your final destination.
Well, the psychological framing here is brilliant when you look at the mechanics of human behavior. Because, abstract concepts like heaven or nirvana, they often fail to change our daily habits because they feel incredibly distant.
Like they're so vague, right?
Exactly. The human brain really struggles to optimize for a reward that is invisible and, like, seemingly light years away.
Right. We want immediate rewards.
Right. So by creating a literal transfer station, the text makes the abstract tangible. It leverages a form of behavioral conditioning.
So it's not just wishing.
No, if you want to go to the 1,000-year world, you don't just pray for it. You have to physically simulate it right now. You have to wire your neural pathways to match the destination.
You're practicing the destination.
Very exact.
You're adapting to the climate before you get on the plane.
Mm-hmm.
And the text claims that those who live in this second home have already experienced the beauty of heaven, like they've effectively smelled the air of it.
Yeah.
It's a very grounded approach to a massive cosmic itinerary
Yeah.
because the map doesn't stop there, right? Beyond the 1,000-year world, there is the 10,000-year world, and eventually something called the Elysium world with its fairy islands.
It is a sprawling journey. I mean, it's huge. But to even begin packing your bags for that transfer station, the author insists you must internalize this really brutal truth about the urgency of the trip,
Right.
because the entire philosophy kind of collapses if you do not understand the scale of time, and more importantly, how little of it you actually possess.
Yeah, and this brings us to a quote in the text that I found incredibly striking. Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah, this part is amazing.
The author writes, and I'm quoting here, "The fungus plant of a morning knows not the alternation of day and night. The cicada knows not the alternation of spring and autumn."
Just beautiful imagery.
It is, and he uses this to assert that human life is painfully, agonizingly short. 100 years passes in a mere moment.
It's a profound biological metaphor. I mean, consider the cicada. It lives underground for years, sometimes over a decade, and then emerges for a single summer.
Right.
It has absolutely no concept of the autumn that is rapidly approaching. Its entire conscious existence is a blip.
So if you're listening to this right now, perhaps sitting in traffic or dealing with a stressful inbox, I think it's worth asking what the author is really trying to provoke in us with this imagery.
Yeah, definitely.
Like, is he saying we are fundamentally ignorant of the universe? Or is he pointing out a severe flaw in how we budget our emotional energy? Because honestly, it feels deeply unsettling to be compared to a morning fungus.
Well, the unease is intentional. It operates as a harsh but necessary economic argument about your emotional bandwidth. Think about the physiological cost of your emotions.
Okay.
Generating joy, pursuing freedom, building happiness, all of that takes immense amounts of cellular energy and focus. The text argues that your 100 years on Earth is barely enough time to secure those positive states.
So the math just doesn't add up.
Exactly.
If my life is effectively one morning, and I spend 3 hours of that morning furious at someone who cut me off in traffic, I have squandered my only daylight.
It is a catastrophic misallocation of a finite resource. When you hold a grudge, your amygdala is actively flooding your body with stress hormones. You are maintaining a state of high alert.
Which is exhausting.
It is. The physical mechanism of anger literally restricts the brain's ability to process higher order states like profound joy or spiritual peace.
Right.
If the cicada spends its 2 weeks above ground harboring a grievance against another cicada over like a piece of tree bark, it has wasted its entire life cycle on a microscopic friction.
Wow.
The existential brevity is the ultimate argument for urgency. You simply do not have the biological time to be angry.
Because time is so fleeting, the ultimate tragedy is letting someone else's actions dictate how you spend it.
Exactly.
Which, brings us to the inevitable reality of life on Earth. We're not ethereal beings floating on clouds.
Yeah.
We're messy.
Very messy.
People betray us. They hurt us deeply. The text asserts that forgiveness is the absolute minimum requirement to enter heaven. But if I'm putting myself in the shoes of someone who has just been profoundly wronged, simply saying, don't be angry because life is short, that feels insufficient.
And the author recognizes that friction. The text is very clear in this. Nobody is perfect, and we ourselves are not perfect.
Right.
It completely accepts that being hurt by others is the baseline condition of a human lifetime. It does not demand that you avoid getting hurt.
Because you can't.
Right. But it demands a highly specific response to that hurt.
And that response is an uncompromising rejection of revenge.
Yes.
The author writes that taking revenge or even fussing over other people's imperfections is beneath us. He claims that taking revenge merely satisfies vanity.
Vanity.
Which is a strong word. He says it provides absolutely no value to a person's life quality. He goes so far as to say that trying to play the hero through vengeance actually stunts your spiritual growth and makes you look mean and narrow-minded.
This is a radical inversion of how most cultures view strength,
It's all completely.
We are deeply conditioned to view retribution as justice. The person who strikes back against their oppressor is the hero. The author just dismantles that, labeling it as the ultimate trap of ego and vanity.
So what does this all mean for our human sense of justice? Because I have to push back on this.
Go for it.
Calling the desire for justice vanity feels like a really tough pill to swallow. Imagine someone deeply ruins your life. They steal your life savings, or they deliberately sabotage your career.
Real trauma.
Exactly. The natural, visceral human response is to want the scales balanced. If the text says that seeking retribution is just vanity, doesn't that imply we should just let people walk all over us? It feels like we are telling victims that their pain doesn't warrant a response, which feels fundamentally unjust.
I get that, and it is entirely natural to resist that concept because our neurology craves balance, and retribution feels like balance.
Right, it feels fair.
But if we connect this to the bigger picture, let's look at the actual mechanism of revenge that the author is highlighting. When you seek to balance those scales through vengeance, what are you physically doing?
Spending a lot of energy.
Exactly. You are tethering your entire psychological state to the person who harmed you. You are feeding them your finite time. The text is not defending the perpetrator.
Oh, that's a crucial distinction.
It is trying to aggressively protect the victim's remaining time.
So it's not about letting the other person off the hook morally. It's about severing a parasitic cord. If I spend 10 years trying to ruin the person who ruined my career, they have now taken my career and a decade of my life.
Exactly. They stole your morning, going back to the fungus metaphor,
Huh.
and the text provides very pragmatic, realistic concessions for this exact struggle.
Thank goodness.
The author does not demand that you immediately radiate glowing, unconditional love for your enemy.
Which is a relief, because that usually feels impossible when you're sitting with real pain.
It is. The text outlines a stepped approach. Shufeng writes that if you cannot bring yourself to love your enemy, then you must at least not hate them.
Okay, you just have to hit neutral.
Yes, just neutral. And if you cannot even get along with them, if the relationship is simply unworkable and toxic, at least ensure there is no active fighting, let there be peace.
So just disengage.
It's a tiered system of disengagement. You aren't being asked to validate the person who wronged you. You are being instructed to cauterize the wound so you don't bleed out your precious emotional energy on your way to the transfer station.
I really appreciate that mechanical view of forgiveness. It's not about being a saint. It's about being deeply protective of your own trajectory.
Yes.
Holding on to the past, as the author says, will merely consume your energy and your precious time. You're basically carrying your enemy in your backpack while trying to hike up a mountain.
And you cannot enter the 1,000-year world with that weight.
Right.
The environment simply won't sustain it.
What's fascinating is that the author doesn't just present this structured, tiered approach to handling enemies in a vacuum.
Yeah.
He actively attempts to validate this highly specific map to heaven by aligning it with the teachings of history's most prominent spiritual figures.
Yeah, the text explicitly connects its framework to the teachings of Jesus Christ and Buddha Sakyamuni.
Right.
The author claims his cosmology is proven by facts, by the historical precedent set by these figures, and by his own direct experiences.
It is a bold structural move.
Yeah.
On one hand, you have this very distinct worldview featuring thousand-year worlds and fairy islands, but it ultimately circles right back to the foundational tenets of major world religions.
Which makes it really compelling.
It does. The specific promise he highlights is, if you forgive others, I will also forgive you.
And when we examine why Jesus and Buddha and now this text all converge on this exact same neurological and psychological mechanism, it becomes clear that this is a universal law of human consciousness.
It transcends the specific religion.
Exactly. You can strip away the metaphysical geography completely. Whether you, as the listener, believe in a literal 10,000-year world or not, the underlying premise is objectively true.
The mechanics of it work regardless of your theology. It's almost like a law of physics.
It is the physics of the human mind. Let's look at the physiological promises the text makes. The author states, if you forgive them from the deep of your heart, you will be brightened up and have a clear mind, and the road forward will be much broader, and you will have a more beautiful future.
You will be brightened up. I love that specific phrasing.
It's very evocative.
It is, because it implies that hatred is quite literally casting a shadow over your cognitive perception. It narrows your vision. When you are angry, you suffer from tunnel vision. You only see the threat. You only see the wound.
And biologically, that is exactly what happens. When you're harboring a grievance, your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for complex planning, joy, and visualizing a beautiful future, is actually suppressed by the survival mechanisms of the brain.
Because it thinks you're under attack.
Exactly. So when the text promises a clear mind and a broader road, it is describing the literal restoration of your higher cognitive functions. Forgiveness is the mechanism that tells your nervous system the threat has passed.
And when you look at the reciprocal promise, if you forgive others, I will also forgive you, it frames the universe as this massive mirror.
That's a great way to put it.
It's not a magical decree from a judge in the sky, it's a reflection. The energy you use to untether yourself from your enemies is the exact energy that clears the obstacles out of your own path.
Right. By choosing to abandon the vanity of revenge and by deeply internalizing the fleeting, fragile nature of your time, as the morning fungus, you free up all of that biological bandwidth.
You reclaim your daylight.
You reclaim your daylight, and you use that reclaimed daylight to focus entirely on the joy and freedom that fundamentally define the thousand-year world.
This entire exploration has been such a paradigm shift. We started by looking at a text that promised a literal map to heaven, complete with a transfer station here on Earth.
Yeah, quite the journey.
And what we found was a masterclass in psychological survival. To quickly recap the key takeaways for you listening, the source material argues that our lives are as brief as the morning fungus and the summer cicada.
Painfully brief.
Yes. We mathematically do not have the time to waste on hatred. To escape that parasitic cycle, we can utilize the concept of the second home, which is the practice of simulating the habits of heaven right here in our daily lives.
Right.
And the mandatory entry fee for that station, the only currency accepted at the door, is forgiveness. Because forgiveness is the only tool sharp enough to cut us free from the trap of vanity and the endless, exhausting gravity of revenge.
It is a demanding philosophy, certainly. It requires you to override your most basic instincts for retribution.
It really does.
But it promises a profound return on investment for your emotional energy.
It leaves you feeling lighter just conceptualizing it. You realize that your baggage is entirely optional. And so we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder as you navigate the rest of your day.
Yeah, something to chew on.
We've spent this time dissecting forgiveness as the mandatory habit of this second home. But if this transfer station is truly meant to be a place where we copy and practice the culture of heaven right here on Earth, what is one other heavenly habit beyond just forgiveness that you could start copying into your own daily routine today?
I love that question.
Right. Just in case you're building your own transfer station right now, the brief time you have, what does the atmosphere inside it feel like?